And there's formal bowing at the beginning and change their power, change and then there's talk and then there's
No, it's all from the Wednesdays. And it's really just that starting.
More like almost a retreat, like a meditation retreat.
Just change it for the talk and change
It
it.
starts out in silence, people start out sitting on their cushions, and they start out in meditation. And they do 2 full periods of meditation. I already did 5 minutes. Okay. I already did in between those 25-minute periods of meditation. There's 10 minutes of walking meditation. So there's sitting meditation for about 25 minutes, and then there's about 10 minutes of walking meditation. And then we sit for another 25 minutes, and we walk for another 10 minutes, and then we take our seats again, and then Reverend Renson will give a Buddhist sermon. It's called a Take Show. And then after he gives talk, there will be sort of some closing chant, and then there will be like a mini parade where we'll kind of go out and we'll do 3 formal bows to the altar. So the whole thing, it actually starts at 7:30. I don't know what time you got it started because you're here plenty early, but it starts at 7:30, and then the whole thing takes a couple of hours. So we go, excuse me, an hour and a half. So it goes from 7:30 to 9 o'clock. I hope you guys can stay until 9. I don't know, sometimes people don't realize that it goes within just a 60-minute session. So what we'll do is while they're doing their first period or so of sitting and that first walking meditation, we'll be in the back room and I'll do some more instruction about this meditation part of what we do, since it's the core of the practice. And then we'll join them back in here, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do some sitting, maybe some walking meditation, and then of course we will talk and participate in more chanting. One of the things, hi.
Hello.
Are you a visitor tonight?
Yeah.
Hi, come on in. You're in the right place. Hi, my name is Shinyu. Your name is?
I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for coming tonight. Looks like you've got your notes and everything.
Yeah.
You must also be here for world religions class or
Yes.
something? Are you in the same class? Is it an online course?
Yes.
Is it through UT?
Yes.
These guys, I think they're in the same class. So I was just explaining some of what we have for tonight. We're going to, they're going to have some sitting meditation periods, and then while they're doing some of their first sitting periods, we're actually going to go to the back room back there, and I'll talk you through how we teach beginning meditation. And then hopefully we'll have time left in their meditation where we can come and join them, and you can sit and meditate for a little while. And then Reverend Renson, our abbot, will be giving a talk from up here to hear what the Zen talk sounds like. And then there'll be a little bit of chanting at the end. And if you want to debrief a little bit after the whole thing's over, you just meet out in that front room there where you came in, and they'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Trying to think, one of the things I always tell people is you're fully welcome to participate in all the parts of the service, including the chanting or the bowing. You're not going to do it wrong, and even if you did, nobody would care. We all started out doing it wrong because we don't know what the heck's going on. And so you're welcome to experience this fully. You don't have to just sit back and take notes. In fact, we would rather have you participating along, including the meditation, whether it's sitting meditation, or walking meditation, or chanting, so you can see what it's like for you. We'll move back to the back room here in just a minute because they're going to get started. But I always like to tell people, so I don't know what if you have a faith or religious background, maybe that's a question I should ask you. Do you have a faith tradition you come from, or a religion? I was born and bred Baptist. Very few people, like almost, less than 1% of the people you'll see here tonight were like born and bred as Zen Buddhist. Most of us grew up with either no religion, or we grew up Catholics or Protestants or Actually, we have had folks who were Muslim come in here, and lots of Jewish folks. So, we're in the middle of America, and so most of the people here who have other religious traditions, but they found their way into Zen Buddhism, and they decided that this is the spiritual practice that actually resonates with them. And so when you see people who are wearing one of these things that looks like a black bib, it means that they've gone through a class. It's called Jukai, which is a Japanese word that means initiation or initiate. And it means, it's kind of like a confirmation class. If you were raised Protestant, you go through confirmation class when you're about 12 years old, and you say, I want to be a Christian, and you usually get a Bible at the end. Or if you're a Catholic, you have catechism class, but you learn about the Bible and you learn about Catholicism. So going to this Jukai class is kind of like going to Zen Buddhist Academy. Question? Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shane.
So when you see people with these things, these are sewn by hand, and they're actually made of these little bits and pieces of cloth. They represent the Buddhist robe, so they're symbolic of the Buddhist robe. And after you sew them, the back of them is initially blank. A silk piece is blank. When you complete this Jukai initiation class, the teachers, our guiding teachers, Reverend Winston and Reverend Dharma, they put their name on there and they date it, and they also give you a new name, which is your Dharma name, as we call it. So my Dharma name is Shin Yu, which means truth companion. Now, we don't always know exactly why we got a particular name, but sometimes we can make some guesses that might be actually right. In my other life, my name is Wessel, and I'm a professor at UT, and I'm a clinical psychologist. So I always thought that truth companion, I had maybe some connection to this idea of being a clinical psychologist who does therapy with people, companions, the truth of their lives. But I don't know for sure. So that's why around here they'll call me Shinyu. And there are people who've been coming here who don't even know me, because all they do is they know me from here and know me as Shinyu. But
no, it would be if
outside
you
of
something that it's on.
the Department of Psychology, UT.
So that's changing using it.
So if you see somebody wearing one of these, that just means they've gone through the Jukai process. But just see other people who have not gone through Jukai who are still practicing with us. And you'll see some people tonight who actually are not Buddhist, but still practicing the meditation with us. One person who's also here is Reverend Ed Highland. Reverend Highland is a Christian minister. He's the pastor of a congregational church, a church that's near the Christian church near the Toledo. So you don't even have to be a Buddhist to come and practice in a Zen meditation center. Another person who practices with us, usually on Sundays rather than Wednesdays, is a woman named Sister Suzette. She is a Catholic nun. She's not a Buddhist. She is a Catholic nun. But along the line in her life, she practices meditation. And she is a full member of our temple and a Catholic nun. So that's one of the unique things about practicing Zen. You don't have to be Zen. You see he's getting ready to whack that piece of wood right here to come in and sit down. But let's go ahead and move out this way. Start doing your thing. If you want to be one of the cool kids, so you can do
sit comfortably facing the teacher so you can make eye contact. And we'll recite the Gata and the Sutra.
In a moment, we'll be reciting the Gata on opening the sutra, which is found on page 8 of your liturgy books. Gata on opening the sutra. The Dharma incomparably profound and infinitely subtle is rarely encountered even in millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for choosing to be here. This is a nice, quiet fall evening and very much an ordinary time. If it's hard for you to see me, feel encouraged and welcome to move closer so that we can see each other. Tonight I'd like to pick up the discussions of the Blue Cliff Record, which is a really wonderful collection of Zen koan. These koan are collections of stories from the tradition, and they were compiled at various times. There's kind of an interesting element to them in that there was a time when it seemed that the lions of the Dharma were roving freely in the forests, shouting and roaring and awakening. And then, the culture of China at the time they started doing well. And so they had more opulence and more decadence and more flurries and flourishes. And over time, things became a little soft and a little complicated and a little baroque. And there came to be a great romanticizing and a hearkening and a yearning really for the simple, hearty awakening of the good old days. And it's interesting to see how this first of all, this societal pendulum between simplicity and complexity, between adversity and ease, this is a pendulum that just swings all the time. Pick a culture, pick a century or two, And you can see this kind of moving back and forth. It's not unique. It seems to be part of our Homo sapien process as a society. And in this particular time, there was these collections of these tales of these great heroes of the early days of the Dharma, and they were compiled, and they became sources of inspiration, certainly, and edification, but more than simply inspiration or edification, more really than just simply keeping the tales of the lineage alive. It turned out that they became keys to awakening, that people could actually use these encounters, these recorded sayings and happenings of the Dharma, and that rather than just being a fossilized record that people could look at and notice, they could become alive for the practitioners of the current day. And more than just academically satisfied, they became ways of entrance into Dharma realization itself. So of course, the Buddha didn't do koan study per se, but the Buddha actually did realize the truth of things. And many of the Buddha's own words and experiences are koan, but as the centuries rolled past, more and more of these stories accrued. Now, this particular collection, it is said that Master Dogen, at the 9th hour, before he was to be commuting back from China to Japan after having received his transmission in, I believe, the 13th century, stayed up very late, burned whatever oil there was to burn, and copied this particular collection of koans and brought them with him from China back to Japan because he felt they were so important. An interesting footnote to those who would say that Dogen had no use for koan. Anyway, let's hear our tale, shall we? Let's hear our exchange. There's a little prelude here. This is from the Blue Cliff Record, case 69. It's called Nansen's Circle. Introduction. With no place to sink in your teeth, the mind seal of Zen masters is like the works of an iron ox. Having passed through a forest of thorns, a Zen practitioner is like a snowflake on a red-hot furnace. Leaving aside piercing and penetrating on level ground for now, when do you not fall into conditions? Then what? The main case. Master Nansen, Kiso, and Mayoku, these three, went together to pay respects to the national teacher, Master Chu. Halfway there, Master Nansen drew a circle on the road and said, "If you can speak, then we'll go on." Kiso put himself in the circle and sat in zazen. Mayoku, though he was a man, made a formal curtsy in the manner of a woman. Master Nansen said, "Well then, let's just not go." And then Kiso said, well, the Cleary translation, which I'm not that fond of here, he says, "What's going on in your mind?" But I think that really isn't the most helpful translation. The one that we use in-house for those students who are in koan introspection is, I think, a better translation. Let's see. Guizhong seated himself in the circle, doing zazen, and Magu made a woman's bow before him, though Magu was a man himself. And Nanquan said, "If you can do it like that, then we won't go on." And then Guizhong said, "What do you mean? We've come so far." It's more useful. What are you thinking? It's probably something like that. I confess I'm at the limits of my translation abilities, which are like none, so. But what a strange encounter, what a strange exchange. But we can unpack it. So these three, Nansen, Guizhong, and Magu, we have set out together to pay their respects to the national teacher. Now, one thing to realize is that at a certain time, no practitioner could receive transmission of the Dharma without going before the national teacher and paying respects, which means going through certain rites and rituals of acknowledgement. So that frames things pretty differently, right? This is Master Nansen with two pretty heavy adepts, probably, that are on their way to sort of get everything in order for their transmission. When I first started training, Daido Roshi was studying with Maizumi Roshi, a Japanese teacher, and Daido was of Italian descent. And still Maizumi said, you know, you need to go to Japan and do the rites. And so it was quite comical, actually, because Daido was this very tall, very big, imposing Italian guy with tattoos. He was in the Navy. He was a sailor, a bosun's mate. So as he told the story, you know, he would, because Maizumi said, look, Maizumi really wanted to have things be correct as he understood them from his country in Japan. And so this was obviously many decades ago. So Daido traveled all the way to Japan. And of course, he had to cover up his U.S. Navy tattoo because in Japan, it means a yakuza, you know, it's a kind of a gangster thing for real. It's to have that come into a temple, although might be kind of cool from a certain perspective. From the Soto orthodoxy, like, no. So he had to cover that up. And also, apparently, as I remember Daido telling the story, they didn't have any of the garments suitable to fit him. Like, his feet were just way too Italian to fit in the Japanese little toe sock thing. So they tried, but just imagine putting on slippers, you know, half as big as they need to be. And of course, the ceremony is he has to go up and be abbot for an hour at Eheji. And, you know, you schedule your time and there's a team and you go up and you officiate at a service as the formal abbot. And then that's part of the process, at least it used to be. Anyway, a little tangent there. But this sort of business about let's do the rites the correct way to make sure that this is acknowledged well, that changed, by the way. After some time, the American Zen teachers said, you know, we can do our own recognition ceremonies. We don't really need to do it this way anymore. And things have evolved. Anyway, there's something like that happening here in our tale. This is no idle journey. This is a very meaningful and specific pilgrimage. These are folks heading there for a reason. So, Nansen, Kiso, and Mayaku went together to pay respects, our translation says, to the national teacher Chu. More than just pay respects. They were taking care of business. Right? Halfway there, however, and again, traveling in these days was not just a simple matter. You know, there weren't truck stops and Starbucks every so often. It was life in hand to travel. Halfway there, Nansen suddenly draws a circle in the road. You can imagine the old man taking a stick, you know, and his two adept students, near successors. He draws a big old circle right in the road. You might not know, but the very symbol of Zen itself is called an enzo, right? It's this kind of a big circle thing. And it has this kind of quality to it where there's a swoop around and a little bit, the circle doesn't close all the way. It's always a little bit left unfinished. What was old Nansen doing there? Why would he do such a thing? Is this is he summoning a demon to trap, to force to do his will, perhaps? Is he Is he setting up some impossible spiritual barrier? Is he just having a little sandbox playtime on a little break? What's going on here? Has a little cognitive decline gotten in the way of the journey? Well, he makes his intent clear. He says, if you can say something, then we'll continue on to the national teacher. No, you could say it's a test. In fact, it's a test. They're halfway there. You know that these students are solid because we have their names. That's always a clue, you know. And these koans, if it says a monk traveled with Nansen, well, you know, we're not sure who that was. So, but here we know. At least we have these names, Kiso and Mayoku. So the old master stopped halfway and drew a circle in the dirt. Interesting how this appears in many spiritual traditions. Somehow these moments of crossing a barrier or encountering some kind of line, a liminal space that you either can or cannot cross. You can think of Lao Tzu, for example, his many, many years of service in the government, and then as a wise old man leaving to practice solitude, he comes to the last gate of civilization, explains to the guard what he's doing. The guard implores him, please, master, sit and write words for us that we may benefit from your wisdom before you depart society. And so he sat down and supposedly wrote the Tao Te Ching. There are other masters who have similar stories. Varied, but kind of the same. In this case, the master drew the barrier for the students right in front of them and said, if you can say something, we'll continue on. So, the gauntlet is thrown. Kiso walked into the middle of the circle, sat down and arranged himself in zazen posture. Like this, like we do. He proceeded to practice. Well, Nansen said, if you can say something, is that an appropriate response? Does it miss it? Does it leap free of it? What was Nansen expressing? Is it just a trap? Is it just a trick, or is there something else going on? Was Nansen actually expressing some exquisite aspect of the Dharma? You see, koans are not puzzles to be solved. These are not exotic Rubik's Cubes from the days of yore. These are prompts for our own spiritual eye to open. These are invitations for us to respond and to engage. So, what was Nansen doing there? What did he present? And then this response, this practitioner, this near successor, Kiso, walking in and sitting zazen. Interesting. But then Mayoku made a curtsy. And the translations all make this very, very clear. The person is male identified, and yet made a formal curtsy very much in the manner of a high court woman of the day. Is this more cognitive decline intruding in the journey? What is going on here? Not just what are they doing, but what are they expressing? You see, Nansen was expressing or presenting or invoking or making real some aspect of the Dharma. And the response of Zazen, too, presented something in response. What's being presented? And then this sort of gender bending, gender fluid, non-binary, whatever, what is this? You know, it's interesting, a little echo of this occurs in the koan curriculum, you know, when we begin to do actual koan training, as we do here. You don't just leap right into these huge cases. There's sort of a gradated training. And there are a couple of spaces in the koans where gender identity is really at play from like centuries ago. Kind of interesting. Well, whatever it was that Nanzen was presenting, whatever it was that Kiso presented in response by sitting Zazen, whatever old Mayoku presented, somehow between all of this, the response from Nanzen was, well, then let's not go. What was that about? Let's not go. Did they fail miserably? I mean, after all, he said, if you can say something, we'll continue. A quick blush reading might give you a pretty strong sense that obviously these students have failed, they've missed the mark. The teacher did some exotic thing here with the circle and said, if you can say something, we'll continue on, and obviously neither said a word. And on that reading, on that account, you could say, well, they failed miserably and he's retracted his offer. There's no need to go to the national teacher and do this right because y'all aren't clear. Is that what's going on? Or is there something else happening? No. The response that came Kiso said, Guizhong said, what do you mean, let's not go? We've come so far. Again, what does that mean? It could be, if you keep reading it in the same way that I've been leading it here a little bit, that the teacher is not satisfied. Look, let's not bother. Oh, what do you mean, let's not bother? We're halfway there. Come on, Dad. I wanna. But I would caution you to maybe look a little deeper. Look a little deeper. You know, it's interesting because in koan study and in realization, within koan study or not, one of the main qualities is that the awakened mind is not tethered at any time to just one particular expression. The awakened mind can move very fluidly between different expressions, not fixing itself to this is always it, and that's never it. Rather, it's like a wheel that can turn. At this time, this spoke hits the ground, and, you know, another second later, a different spoke is hitting the ground. There are these three bodies of the Buddha, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. It was very interesting because they're very different from each other. And they're very, very different aspects. And yet really they're not different at all. But when you first start working with these things, they all present very differently. And this is a great challenge to the Zen student because most Zen students will have one of those three kind of their go-to aspect that they relate to quickly. And yet, that same go-to response that perhaps tumbles along fairly easily can also become a trap. We can too quickly hang on to that initial insight and that initial way of seeing things and think, oh, I got it. And when you grip so tight to that, then you basically block out all the other possibilities. This, of course, is insufficient. And so, as celebrated as an initial insight might be, it's not acceptable. At least it's not sufficient. What else is there? What's another way of seeing? And then for most Zen students, one of those other ways of perceiving takes a little bit of doing, but it's there. But I tell you, that third one, that one can be a real tricker. And it doesn't, there's no particular way to know in advance what student is going to have which one of those three be their kind of go-to or their blind spot. And of course, not everyone follows into the same patterns. But it is interesting. It is fascinating. And, being a privileged participant, humbly and gratefully in the process of many folks' spiritual development, this process never fails. It is always so. And what's really interesting is that when you begin to encounter your mind in this way, it becomes quite clear that the particular style of suffering that you heap upon yourself is the result of the way you see yourself and the world. You see. It has everything to do with your daily life. See, these exchanges are, on face value, kind of maybe a little odd dances from strange people from years ago, centuries ago. But actually, it's talking about the dance of your own mind right now. The way that you imprison yourself or free yourself to love or not. This boundless ground of love. Why is that so hard? Why is that so hard? Why is it so difficult? It almost makes one wonder if these different expressions, perhaps in some way, are pointing to these different aspects. Doesn't it? And if it was true that that was the case, then wouldn't it be interesting to see these three adepts playing freely? Because those responses are not the same, right? An empty circle, boundless, a person sitting in zazen, someone defying all social norms freely. What? But really, if you investigate your own heart, your own mind, your own body, your own life, and you pay particular attention to the ways that you hook yourself, the way that we feel that we get hooked, the places that scare us, the places that defile us so we feel, the places that scare us. What is it about them that gives them such stick? And is it necessarily so? I mean, after all, did Daido really need to go all the way to Japan and put on size way too small slippers? Does that really have anything to do with his awakening or his capacities to be the abbot? From a certain perspective, absolutely necessary for that time and place and degree. But from another perspective, how silly. Putting cover up on a tattoo. Trying to cram your feet into two smallest slippers and ripping them. Let's just not bother. We're fine, you know. Oh, but then again, there's something about that, isn't there? There's something about following the rites and being in line with the lineage. Why not? Anyway, in his case, he went. And some decades later, it was figured out that, you know, we don't need to do that anymore. But something else happens. Actually, in our community here, the mountain seat ceremony happened. It's the same thing. It's a ceremonial way of acknowledging that this dime has dropped. You could say, who cares? Why do it? Let's just not. And many communities have, by the way. And yet, something happens when we do these things. You know, to conclude, I'll bring some attention to the fact that this Sunday we have the eye-opening ceremony for our Buddha statues. This is really cool. You could also see this as being really stupid. Because what it has to do with is everybody is invited to bring the Buddha image from their household. And, you know, if people practice here for a while, you start getting nudged to have an altar in your house. It's kind of a fun, cool thing to do, you know. It's a spiritual technology that matters and is helpful. It's not required, but it's a cool thing to have if you know how to set it up and how to work with it. There is something about having a sacred power spot in your home that at times is manifesting your practice more clearly than you're able to, but is still there doing it. So people can bring their Buddha statues, and we'll take a ritual from the transmission Kachimakyu documents, which typically is done only for like formal Buddha image at a temple. Again, typically a very rare ceremony, but we spread the disease. We allow people to bring their statues, and everybody gets to see it, and we all get to participate in it. And we open the eye of the Buddha statues, and we invite the spirit of Buddha to come and reside there. And specifically and importantly, we connect those home altar Buddha images to the image here at the main temple, so that every time a liturgy or a ritual action or a retreat or a teisho is happening in some way, that connection is real and goes right to the home. And it has nothing to do with physical distance, whether you live right down here or across national lines. And this is real. The effect of it is real. There are people that have, in this Sangha, that have found themselves in hospice situations. And having that little altar set up right there next to their hospital bed makes all the difference for them. Why not go all the way, as long as we've come this far? For the sake of all beings throughout space and time, let's go on, shall we? May it be so.
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our service for this evening. I'm sure there are some announcements. I know that this Saturday is the Shokin workshop from 2 to 5. Are there announcements?
As Roshi said, eye-opening ceremony is on Sunday, so bring your Buddha image. And also bring some food to share, because it's potluck. So make something, find something, buy something. Come share. Yes?
Is there a pasta-thon on Saturday?
Pasta-thon is also on Saturday in the morning before Shokan workshop. Morning practice happens at 7 a.m. Optional, but enjoyable. Pasta-thon starts at 8:30, I think, after some light breakfast. And then the Shokan workshop starts at 2 o'clock on Saturday. Then Sunday's eye-opening, bring your Buddha, bring your food. And then also, you should have got an email today that has the 2024 calendar in it. If you have any questions about that, feel free to see me. Also, there's a paper copy of it on the reception table you can take home. So, fun to plan ahead.
Thank you, and again, a special thank you and welcome to our visitor for this evening. If you'd like to check with me on the way up, I can point you to some other activities and things that we can give you about what's going on at the temple. So, again, thank you. Please restore the Zendo. Good evening.